brought that up is if you're watching news outside of what's being presented to you, that scripted news, that ain't real news, y'all. It's scripted. They're selling you how to think about things. They want to sell you, you go to Fox, they want to sell you how to think about Trump. Right? You go to NBC, they want to tell you how to think about Trump. NBC want to tell you another thing about Kamala Harris. It's all scripted. They're trying to get you to think a certain way about things, and you're not getting truth, or you're not getting the full truth. But when you get the full truth, you'll see that our world is in turmoil right now. There's war against the citizens of Gaza. Now, they have only recorded about 40,000 deaths, and a high percentage of those are women and children. That's all they've recorded. But we know that they've been blockading and keeping people from sending them supplies and food, and they've been bombing hospitals, bombing schools, bombing refuge, places of refuge. And so thousands of people dying there. With Sudan, you can multiply what's happening in Gaza by 10. The people that are displaced. And just that one country, starving. They had a big outbreak of disease. No way to get help, medical help. We have very strange weather. Our weather is so strange that we just become used to it now. It don't mean anything to see earthquakes on the news. How many did we have last week? 6? 5, 6? Just in the U.S.? I ain't talking about outside the U.S., like Japan. Right, so the times that we're living in are going to be getting worse and worse and worse, because we're in the time of judgment that Yahushua called the beginnings of sorrows, or the birth pains. He called them the birth pains. The birth pains. So it's important how we live now. We can't live the way we used to and just throw up and just, we're just throwing this up and maybe Yah will cover it and give us some grace. No, we can't live that way. We can't live that way anymore. Right? We have to live the way He's prescribed us to live. So I said all that just to get to an introduction for this. All the bad stuff that's going on around us, this is going to touch us a little bit today. Just give y'all a heads up. All the bad stuff that used to be over there and over there and over there, it's hit home. Yes. Yes. It's hit home. Things are happening and hitting us personally. And if we're not careful, and if we don't know how to manage, we can get bitter. We can get bitter. All right? So the message today is, don't get bitter. Get better. Get better. Because we need to get better. When I say get better, I'm using that like in a health term. When we say, I hope you get better, or I hope you feel better. Get better. If I send out an email to my team and say, hey, I'm staying home, I'm sick, I guarantee you somebody going to respond, get better. That's all they'll say. Get better. All right? All right. So by now, since 2019, most of us have had some experience in our lives that can cause bitterness. Most of us. Right? Just living in these days alone can increase our bitterness. Every time you turn on the TV, what's wrong with people? Why would Yah allow these things to happen? Why is He allowing innocent kids to get blown up? They innocent, Yah. Why you allow that to happen? We're living in the beginning of summer. Right? And then there's 3 ways that we project bitterness. One is inward. Some of us might have some issues with our own self. We don't like who we are. We have a level of self-hate that's so private nobody even knows about. And it comes out in different ways. There's different symptoms that we see. Why are they always doing this? Why are they always doing that? Well, it's because there's something on the inside that they don't like about themselves.
Yes.
They have self-hate, loathing, depression, stress, even suicide. Bitter towards your own self. I don't like the way I look. I don't like the way I was born. Sometimes we're bitter toward others, especially if somebody did something to us. And it comes out in unforgiveness. Unforgiveness, hate. Sometimes it's just rigidness. Just rigid. I'm just going through the motion, but I ain't giving you no time of day. I'm rigid. Right? And then the one that we don't even talk about is bitterness toward Yah. That was hard to talk about. When we're bitter toward Yah, our true worship is inhibited. And worship is not just giving praise. Worship is obeying. How you live your life is worship. When we're bitter toward Yah, it don't mean that we don't believe He's God. But it will inhibit our worship. It caused some of us to lack faith. He didn't do it that time, but maybe He's going to do it this time. And it causes some of us to lose faith when we're bitter toward Yah. See, this is a very, very touchy subject. It's a very hard place to navigate. I got some skin in this game. I know what I'm talking about. So for those of us, most of us have been through some things in these last 5 years that are very difficult. I'm not just blowing hot air at you. We need to get better. We need to get better. All right, this is Ruth chapter 1. And it came to be in the days when the rulers ruled that there was a scarcity of food in the land, and a man from Bethlehem, Yehudah, or Bethlehem of Judah, went to sojourn or to live in the fields of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. And the name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife was Naomi. And the names of his 2 sons were Marlon and Kenan. I know that's not their name, but that's what came to my mind when I looked at it. What's their last name, y'all? All right, Ephrathites of Bethlehem. So they were a tribe of the tribe of Ephraim. Right? And they went to the fields of Moab and came there to be. Now already, our antennas should be going up. Because already, the first thing I'm thinking is, okay, this is the land of Judah. And why is there a scarcity of food in the promised land? Why is there a scarcity of food in the land that's flowing with milk and honey? There's a whole other story behind this, y'all, but I ain't going to get into it. All right, verse 3. And Elimelech, husband of Naomi, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. And they took 2 wives of the women of Moab. The name of the one was Oprah Winfrey. Y'all didn't know we was having a star-studded cast today. And the other one was Baby Ruth. And they dwelt there about 10 years. And Mahlon and Kilion also died, both of them. So the woman was bereaved of her 2 sons and her husband. So she went there, going to seek better, a better land. Resources was kind of jacked up. And they thought they was going somewhere better. Now all the men folk died. Y'all know that she just couldn't just go up to JCPenney and get a job. It didn't work like that back then. Back then, the men were your providers. The men were your protectors. And now it's her, and now she got these other 2 ladies with her. They got no men. All right? And she rose up with her daughters-in-law and returned from the fields of Moab. For she had heard in the fields of Moab that Yahuwah had visited his people in giving them bread. So she got word, okay, back home, y'all, we got bread. All right, verse 7. And she left the place where she was and her 2 daughters-in-law with her. And they went on the way to return to the land of Judah. And Naomi said to her 2 daughter-in-laws, go, return each to your mother's house. Yahuwah show a loving commitment to you, and you, as you have shown to the dead and to me. So she's trying to send them away. Y'all go back to your mama house. All right, Yahuwah grant that you find rest, each in the house of her husband. Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voices and wept. And they said to her, no, we shall go back with you to your people. All right. Then she said, go back, my daughters. Why go with me? Have I sons in my womb that they should become your husbands? Go back, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. If I should say I have expectancy, even if I should have a husband tonight, and should also bear sons. In other words, she's saying, I can't give y'all no more sons. Right? Now, normally what they would do is if the husband, the son died, and he had a brother, then the brother would take the daughter-in-law to wife. And she said, Naomi saying, listen, I can't do that for y'all. Even if I got married today, y'all ain't getting no other men out of me. All right, verse 13. You'd have to wait for them until they got grown. Would you shut yourselves up not to have a husband? No, my daughters. For it is much more bitter for me than for you, because the hand of Yahuwah has gone out against me. And they lifted up their voices and wept again. And Oprah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. And she said, look, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her mighty ones. What's the mighty ones? What's another word for mighty ones? Gods. Right? It said Oprah went back to her mama's house and her mama's gods. Right? Go back, follow your sister-in-law. So she's trying to tell Ruth, you go back and do that too. All right, verse 16. But Ruth said, do not urge me to leave you or to go back from following after you. For wherever you go, I go. And wherever you stop over, I stop over. Your people is my people, and your God is my God. Where you die, I die, and there I shall be buried. Yahuwah do so to me, and more so also, for death itself parts you and me. So Ruth is like really clinging to her mother-in-law. Like she's like, wherever you go, I'm going. Whoever you're serving, I'm serving. The only thing that's going to part us is death itself. Verse 18. And when she saw that she was strengthening herself to go with her, she ceased to speak to her. So she's like, all right, skip it, right? Verse 19. And both of them went until they came to Bethlehem. And it came to be, when they had come to Bethlehem, that all the city was moved because of them. And they said, is this Naomi? So in other words, they went back home, and then everybody in Bethlehem was like, oh, who's that? That Naomi? Right? And she said to them, don't call me Naomi. Call me Mara. For the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. Can you imagine that? So here she comes, and people are like, hey, there's Naomi. And they're excited. And then she said, don't call me that. Y'all black women, y'all know when y'all get a little attitude. How your neck talk too. She said, don't call me that. Call me Mara. I went out filled, and Yahuwah brought me back empty. Why do you call me Naomi? Since Yahuwah has witnessed against me, and the Almighty has done evil to me. Thus Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, who returned from the fields of Moab, and they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. The barley harvest. So listen to what she said. Don't call me Naomi. Don't call me Naomi. Call me Mara. What does Mara mean? Bitterness. 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 Now, some of us might look at this story and be able to relate. Don't come smiling at me. Somebody coming at you and you feeling some kind of way? Don't agree with that. And we might observe somebody who's feeling this way and be judgmental. And they ain't got to be all like that. That person didn't do nothing to them. But the problem is I'm feeling some kind of way because of what happened to me. I didn't have control over these circumstances, and now look what happened. Don't come over here and call me Naomi. Call me jacked up. So when we look at this word in Strong's dictionary, Mara literally means bitterness. That's the Hebrew word for bitterness, is Mara. So she literally said, call me bitter, or call me bitterness. Now I looked at the root word, it means to be bitter, angry, discontented, and grieved. Now we can't be judgmental. And what this message is not saying is to ignore what you feel. Because when things happen to you, you're going to feel some kind of way. That's just how we are. We have our five senses, we got our emotions. But he made us this way. We're going to feel some kind of way. Right? So I just looked up the word bitterness. Connected to that is resentment. And then this is why this is so crucial for us. Resentment comes from bitterness. Animosity. A whole bunch of other ones. Enmity. Hostility. Right? So let's look at this a little bit. Let's look at what Naomi declared in that verse. She made 3 declarations against Yah. She called him out by name. She called him out by name and said he did this. I mean, that's in all of my grief. I don't think I ever called him out by name like that. But I probably was feeling it and recognizing it, right? He said, Yah has brought me back empty. In other words, I had it going on when I left. Y'all know I had it going on. Y'all saw my wagon had bling on it. I had my gold jewelry and my necklace and my gold tooth. But now I'm coming back empty. And Yah did it. I had all of this, and you can put anything in that blank. You can put anything in there. It don't have to be material things. But what she's saying is, I had it going, y'all. Y'all saw me when I left. But now, because of Yah, I come back empty. That caused bitterness. She's saying it's Yah's fault that I came back empty. I had nothing to do with this. There was nothing I could do. He did this. That's a pretty rough accusation. Look at the next one. She said, Yah has witnessed against me. So it's one thing to say, well, Yah just took everything away from me. But it's another thing to say, well, he actually witnessed against me. Like, he went up against me. He witnessed against me. Came up against me. And then she just summed it all up with her 3rd declaration. Yah has done evil to me. The creator of all this, the creator of all these spirits, the creator of the heaven and earth and every species of bird and fish and animal and every insect, the creator of air, the very air you breathe, she said, that one did this evil to me. So it's different when you bitter against somebody else. you might even be able to do something to that person. But when Yah has done it to you, you can't do nothing about it. She could not do anything. That's why she had that attitude. Don't call me Naomi. You better call me Naomi. You see what I went through. Right? Those are her declarations. But let's flip it over. Let's look at what her reality became. Naomi's daughter-in-law, what's her name? Ruth. Ruth married Boaz. Yep. So what's the big deal about that? Even that whole thing is a trip. Because Boaz's daddy married Rahab the harlot from Jericho. He was talking about the trip. His family, anyway. So Ruth marries Boaz. And they had a boy named Obed. Obed had a boy named Jesse. Jesse had David. The best king Israel ever had. And here she goes, don't call me Naomi. But look what she got. Then came Solomon. And if that wasn't good enough, I mean, you got the two best kings of the whole Israelite history. The prime of Israel under these two men. But then afterward, she got the King of Kings in her bloodline. The king, and of his kingdom, there's going to be no end. But yet, in the previous slide, she said, Yah done evil to me. He was evil to me, y'all. He brought me back empty. He did all this stuff. Yeah, he did do all that stuff. But if he had not done it, where would Ruth be? Married to the wrong person.
Ruth got blessed on all that.
Yeah.
All that Naomi did to Yah, and he blessed Ruth.
He blessed Ruth.
Yeah.
Yeah. He blessed Ruth. And Ruth wasn't even an Israelite. But Ruth said, I'm going to cling to you. Yes. I'm going to serve your God. Yeah. Whatever you do. Now, Ruth, she could have been just as bitter as Naomi. Yeah. I married your son. Yeah. I moved in with y'all and your husband just died, just up and left us. You know your son didn't know how to do nothing. And now he up and died and you ain't got no other sons. Who am I going to marry now? She could have got bitter too. Look at the contrast. She got blessed. She got blessed. Look at that. Look at that. You can look at the genealogy in Matthew chapter 1. It says, and Solomon begat Boaz of Rahab. And Boaz begat Obed of Ruth. Obed came from Ruth. And Obed begat Jesse, and Jesse begat David the king. And David the king begat Solomon of her that had been the wife of Uriah. That's a whole nother one right there. A whole nother man's wife that got killed. I'm telling y'all. I'm telling you. I don't know why they make up these old foul stories in Hollywood. All they got to do is read the Bible. You go for that. Woo. And never feel that y'all can't do nothing for you. Now, if you read the rest of the account with Naomi, you're going to see that Naomi single-handedly crafted the meeting and the getting together of Boaz and Ruth. I mean, she crafted that whole thing. For somebody who's bitter, she did a good job, didn't she? Just maybe Yah has started healing her to where she could see love again. Right? That she could see a way for her daughter-in-law Ruth. Just think, what would have happened to Naomi if Ruth would have stayed back? She would have died bitter. And she would not have a bloodline after her to account for. Yeah. Yeah. Right? So some things that there's a lot we can take away from this, y'all. I know this ain't deep. But we are living in a time where it's very easy to be bitter. When I saw that police officer shoot that lady in the face, that almost made my body shake. You know, it's so easy to get bitter right now because of all the stuff that's happening. And it's getting worse and worse. Perpetually, it's getting worse. It's accelerating. Exponentially is the word, right? Yah knew before it happened. He knew before it happened. There's nothing that catches him by surprise. You can't say boo, and you know, he knew he was going to say boo. There's nothing that he didn't know. So when we think about the bitterness and the things that could cause us to be bitter, we need to get this understanding right here, y'all. As bad as it gets, as bad as it feels, as hard as it is to deal with, he knew it before it happened. He already knew it before it happened. He knew it. And in knowing that, he still promised, Romans 8:28, he still promised that he would work it all out for our good. If you're going through something that makes you cry, if you're going through something that makes your heart hurt, knowing these two things can be very instrumental to you getting better. Know that he already knew that was going to happen. He knew that it was going to happen. He knew how it was going to make you feel. But he promised you it's going to work for your good. We know that verse. We got to memorize. All things work for good to them that are called and that love Yah and are called to his purpose. And the last thing is that our challenge then becomes a challenge of trust. Trust. If we want to find our way out of bitterness, if we want to get better, it starts with trust. We can fancy it up and call it faith. It sounds kind of religious and holy. Or we can just call it belief. Do I really believe that he promised to work this out for my good? Or that he promised to work this out for somebody else's good? Do I really believe that? Am I like Job, who said, though he slay me, yet will I trust him? Yet will I trust him? Right? He did say without faith, it's impossible to please him. It's impossible. If we get into bitterness and we don't let it go, we cannot operate in faith. If we can't let go of bitterness, that means, Yah, I don't trust you with this. I'm holding on because you did this. We get back to looking like Naomi. Right? He brought me back empty. I had this and you took it away. Yah witnessed against me. You witnessed against me. How many of you ever prayed? You prayed earnestly and it didn't happen. Prayed earnestly, might even fasted, and it didn't happen. And it feels like Yah witnessed against me. Hallelujah. But when we get back to trust, that's when the repair work starts to happen. Right? That's when we get better. That's when we get better. Because when it gets back to trust, right, and belief, then we open that avenue up to Yah. And there's all this. You want to read about it? Read the account of Job. Ruth is a good one, but read about Job. Or read about Job. Now I can't imagine going through what that man went through. I can't even imagine. And then for him to open up his mouth and say, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. That is trust. That is a place of faith. That's walking. If you want a picture of walking in faith, look at Job. Look at Job. And he got better. Even though he went through that major loss, he got better. His end was better than his beginning. Just like Naomi, just like Ruth. Their end was better from the beginning. Amen. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.